The Nutty Putty Cave is one of the dangerous caves around the world. Located around 55 miles outside of Salt Lake City, for years the Nutty Putty Cave was a well-known tourist attraction for explorers like John Jones. Unfortunately, his cave exploration ended up with a fatal accident. In this video, we take you through the tragic story of John Edward John, who was trapped for almost 25 hours in the Nutty Putty Cave. First discovered in 1960, the cave quickly became famous for its unusual formation, full of narrow, winding passages which opened up into a series of huge subterranean, which saw thousands of visitors descend upon the cave every year. It was inevitable that a few inexperienced cavers would eventually find themselves in trouble. From 1999 to 2004, 6 people became stuck in the cave and had to be rescued. But John Jones was not that lucky. As such, in 2006, the cave was shut down to the public for 3 years, while the Timpanogos Grotto implemented a number of safety procedures. They thought the upgrades would make the cave safer for exploration. But they were wrong. A devout Christian, medical student, and father to a newborn baby, John Edward Jones seemingly had the world at his feet. Born into a large family, John and his brother Josh had been avid cavers when they were children, and sought to rekindle their love of spelunking with a trip to the Nutty Putty Cave. The brothers arrived at the cave with a party of 9 other friends and relatives of varying degrees of experience, a fairly large group by caving standards. Upon arrival, the group soon split off into 2 groups, with children and less experienced adults exploring easier sections of the cave while the seasoned spelunkers went deeper. It was here that things started to go wrong. For the first hour or so of their excursion, things appeared to be going well for the Jones brothers. They had explored the largest section of the cave, nicknamed the Big Slide, and were eager to head even deeper into the depths. John suggested they explore a section of the cave known as the Birth Canal, an extremely challenging route that involved squeezing through a long, narrow passageway, which eventually opened up into a large, cavernous area. He first heard about the route as a young boy and had been eager to explore it for years, not taking into account how much he'd grown physically in the interim. The pair discovered an extremely tight opening in the walls which they wrongly assumed to be the entrance to the birth canal, and crawled into the tiny hole. John went first, wriggling deeper and deeper into the narrow passage headfirst under the assumption it would soon widen and open up into a large cavern. But unbeknownst to the brothers, they weren't in the birth canal at all. They had accidentally taken a wrong turn and headed into an unmapped part of the cave. John kept pushing further into a tunnel which had no endpoint, squeezing himself into the crevice without any means of turning around. So John kept going forward, still thinking he was in the birth canal. Eventually he came across a fissure in the rock which dropped down nearly straight down in front of him, which he thought opened up into a cavern which would give him a chance to turn around. So John sucked in his chest to investigate the fissure, sliding his torso over a lip of rock and down into the 10-inch wide side of the crevice. But when his chest expanded again, he was stuck. Attempts to free himself only made John slide deeper into the hole, and he soon found himself trapped upside down, with his hands pinned to his chest, in a crevice which measured just 10 by 18 inches, smaller than the entrance to a front-loading washing machine. Realizing he was trapped, John called his brother Josh to help, who pulled his legs in an attempt to free him, which actually made the situation even worse. John ended up inverted, with his hands pinned under his chest and his head facing downwards, unable to move. At this point, all he could do was wait and pray. Josh said a prayer at the time, saying, "Guide us as we work through this," to which John heartbreakingly added, "Save me from my wife and kids," creeping forwards down the crevice just inches behind his brother. His stomach filled with dread when he saw John's feet sticking out of the tiny hole which had swallowed him. Seeing his feet and seeing how swallowed he was by the rock, that's when I knew it was serious, Josh told the Salt Lake Tribune. It was really serious. Josh tried to pull his brother out of the hole, but only managed to inch him up a little. As soon as he let John go, he slid right back into the crevice. After saying a quick prayer, Josh left his brother and headed back to the surface looking for help, and soon drew a large crowd of volunteers and professionals. Josh had to make the 400-foot journey back up through the cave to seek help, with the first rescuer, Susie Mottala, finding John hours later with just his shoes visible. Susie, was a local rescue volunteer who immediately dropped everything to come and help John. After inching her way down the tunnel with ropes tied to her feet, she finally encountered his trapped body, nearly 3 hours after he first got stuck. "Hi, John. My name is Susie. How's it going?" she asked. "Hi, Susie. Thanks for coming, but I really want to get out," John's voice replied. "Oh, no worries, John," she told him. "You're going to be out of here lickety-split." Susie tied a rope around John's feet and tried to pull him out herself, but due to the tightness of the angle and the narrowness of the cave, there was no way to maneuver his body out of the crevice he had become stuck in. What instead transpired over the next few hours was an intense brainstorming session from all members of the rescue party, who tried every method they could to free John from his subterranean prison. In addition to pulling him, they also tried lubing the walls and drilling away chunks of rock near John. But the hard material and the awkward position made the drilling slow and painful work. After drilling over for an hour, they abandoned this approach after only managing to drill through a couple of inches of rock. Susie and a team of around 100 people worked tirelessly to try and rescue John for the next 24 hours. But the task was made worse by the fact he was in absolutely the worst spot in the cave. Rescuer Sean Roundy told press at the time, "It's very narrow, very awkward, and it's difficult to get rescuers down there. It's a really tight spot, but we've been able to get around him. We were able to hold his hand at some point." After many failed attempts and around 19 hours after he first got stuck, the team eventually devised a complex pulley system to try and pull John out of the cave, ABC News reported at the time. The plan initially seemed to be working as John even managed to partially free himself. However, tragically the pulley system broke at the last minute, sending him plummeting back down. Harrowingly, he told rescuers, "I'm going to die right here. I'm not going to come out of here, am I?" Despite his own horrifying predicament, John was also concerned about one of the rescuers, Ryan Shorts, who had been badly hurt when a metal carabiner flew back and hit him in the face when the pulley system failed, asking, "Is he okay? I think he's really hurt bad." The effects of the extreme stress and pressure John was under began to set in, and the young father began to panic, so rescuers put his wife Emily on the phone to calm his nerves, and he promised to get out so he could be there for her and their children. At this point, all hope was lost. One of the rescue team tried to re-enter the tunnel to drill a new hole and tie a fresh rope around John's legs, but almost became stuck himself and had to crawl out of the cave. John himself had also become unresponsive. At this point, he had been trapped for over 25 hours and his body had begun to break down from the stress and strain. A doctor was eventually able to reach him and pronounced the cave diver dead of cardiac arrest and suffocation on November 25th. His wife Emily, still outside, refused to leave her husband's body trapped inside the cave, and the local sheriff assured her they would recover it. But even following his death, it was deemed too dangerous to attempt to recover his body, and the entrance to the passage he was trapped in was collapsed with controlled explosives. According to Downey, many of the volunteer rescuers had become so traumatized by the experience that some of them never entered a cave again. Once it became clear that John's remains couldn't be safely removed from the cave, Nutty Putty was permanently sealed off and John's family had a plaque put on the entrance of the cave in his memory. The 2016 movie The Last Descent tells the story of John's heartbreaking final days.